because our deepest wounds often reveal our greatest purpose. Welcome to the Court of Connection. I have a special guest today whose name is also Danielle. She is a licensed therapist and also an astrologer. So what a perfect person for my for my show, and I'm so excited to share you with everyone.
Oh, I'm so honored to be here with you and your audience, and I'm excited to dive into all the cosmic wisdom that the stars have for us, and also how we work with that, individually, and how that can be in service to our lives and our integration and living authentically.
Beautiful. Well, I first want to start by saying cool names for your businesses. It's Start Within Therapy and then Stars Within
Yes.
for your
Yes. The Start Within has been, I've had my private practice for a while now. I started practicing in 2018, and astrology came several years later. And then I was like, what am I going to call this? And it was like, well, I'm all about going within. And it's like, that's what I do with astrology too, is like pull the stars and let's bring them within, and just like, how do we work with this individually and in service of our lives and our relationships? And I was like, perfect. Let's do stars within. Keep it streamlined.
I love it. I love it. So how do you know Shelly? I didn't even ask you that.
So she actually heard about me through a family friend. I have a friend who, it's actually my husband's really good friend. They went to college together. His sister, and she used to babysit her older sister. It was like this funny little web of connections. And then they had put out kind of a line like, does anyone know anybody who wants to talk astrology with us? And she threw my name in the hat, and they sent me an email, and I was like, absolutely. I had so much fun on their podcast.
They are a blast.
Yes.
They're so much fun. Yeah.
It was
Oh,
great.
good. Well, for people meeting you for the first time, myself included, how do you describe the work you do in your own words?
Yes. So probably getting into a little bit of like my journey of how I've ended up here, because it's still unfolding organically how this has developed professionally. I went to school for professional counseling, and I graduated from Texas State in 2010. And then I took a break from everything, and I had my daughters, and then I stepped back out and decided okay, it's time to start. And I didn't actually start practicing till 2018. And then through that, I was always looking for theories and models in the therapeutic spaces that were talking about like the soul, but from an academic or scientific language. And so I bumped into a few, and it was getting close. And then I learned about internal family systems, IFS, and self with a capital S. And to me, I was like, oh, this is such a a spiritual, psychosomatic spiritual kind of process. And I was like, this is amazing. And so I was like, I really started getting into that and the multiplicity of ourselves. And then astrology kept popping up. And then I was starting to study that because it blew my mind, because I could not understand anything on my own. So I enrolled in a program, and it was like a 1.5-year certification where they just kind of sent so much information our way. And then I took some time to integrate that. And I couldn't help but see the connection between people's individual parts and then the archetypal energy of the planets. And then I started to pull in people's charts into the therapeutic space if they were open to that. At first, just for my own study, like I'd have their chart up and we'd be meeting on telehealth, and I could like look at their chart and see things happening and starting to draw some connections. And then it's continued to deepen and really enrich the process. And at this point, anybody who's working with me is typically into astrology. Like that's how they come to me now. And so we're able to weave in kind of the birth chart and the myths and the stories and the archetypes and energies that the planets have to offer us, the conversations happening between their planets, and then also working with their parts and how this is kind of internalized. And it's, like I said, it's still unfolding and it's still developing over the last couple of years, but it just continues to get more and more rich.
This is such a crazy synchronicity again, because first of all, we chatted before we started this episode and we've had all of the same kinds of dogs in our lifetime, which is hilarious.
Yes.
Our name's Danielle.
Yes.
But more than that, I actually just quit my 9 to 5 job that I've had for 9 years. And I'm stepping out on my own, and I'm building a coaching business. And I have always, since this idea came to me, was like, I really want to incorporate astrology on some level into coaching, because you hit the nail on the head. It is so intertwined with our patterns and our desires and our path and all of these things. I mean, it's brilliant. I don't know near as much as you do, but that's so cool, because it's something I deeply want to integrate into that process too. Yeah.
I love that. And congratulations, taking that brave step to complete something a place that you've been in, a nest you've been in for 9 years, to step out of that and say, okay, I'm gonna do this in pursuit of my dreams. So
Yes.
great.
I'm excited and equally terrified. I have never, I don't know, I'm like, people are like, well, so what exactly are you doing? Like, I don't know yet. I'm going to figure it out as I go, you know?
Okay, right. Trusting the process.
Yeah. So what was the moment that you realized healing had to start within for you?
So I typically, my temperament has always been pretty introspective, and through my own journey and my own, different heartbreaks and traumas over my life, I really kind of stumbled into it, as I think most of us as therapists do, studying myself and being like, okay, I want to understand this on a deeper level and also help people along the way. And so I think the deeper that I have gone with myself, the more meaningful and deeper my life, my relationships, all of that it's so within, so without. And this idea of like, you can't pick fruit from a fruitless tree. And so like growing that fruit myself, and I've always kind of been like client or patient zero for most of my work, of like, okay, like I learn about something and how it's helped me, and then offering that to others if it resonates and if they find that helpful. And it's it really, it just has always kind of fit. It actually isn't something I have felt like from it, like, I'm going to go into this field, at a young age. Like, it just kind of, one thing led to another. And it was like, oh, here's this program. It's available. That's where I'm geographically wanting to be. It's just starting. I'll just pop in, see how it goes. And it was just kind of been like that my whole path, like just following similarly to what you just described, of like, I don't know where this is taking me, but I'm feeling the call. So I'll take the next best step, and just kind of letting things unfold that way.
So powerful. Yeah. You made a really cool point, or a really good point. I always say this, the best thing that you can do for the world, the people in your life, is do your own work.
Yeah.
And we're so conditioned to believe. I've been in recovery for 10 years, so I have a lot of the language. I've been obviously going inward for a very long time, and this tendency to, when something comes up in us, to blame someone else, right? It's this we live in this projecting world. And when you start to do the work within, it becomes this fun journey of like, ooh, what is this mirroring in me? Like, what this interaction right now is bringing something up in me, and versus being like repelled by this person, I'm curious now, like,
Yes.
what's going on? What's going on in the world? Yeah.
I love that. Yes. And as Carl Jung says, like, we'll never get to the bottom of our psyches. And same with astrology, with all the layers, and just, you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. It's like, it's a never ending journey, which can be so exciting and energizing for some parts, and also maybe overwhelming to some parts who would like to check that box and move on. Like, I healed that, I can move on. Nope, it'll be back. We're doing the spiral, looking at it from different angles for the rest of our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man, I do a lot of digging into astrology. I haven't taken a course or anything, but there's so much. Was it overwhelming for you to start to dig into astrology?
Yes. So overwhelming. I often say, when I have birth chart clients, or or even workshops that I've led, I'm like, okay, just know it can feel like you are drinking from a fire hose. Like, it is a lot. Like, it's like, I'm so thirsty, I want this, but this does not feel satisfying because it's just so much. And the program that I took, they even told us during the program, they're like, we're giving you about a decade's worth of information in a year and a half. So I really had to be patient, which some of my mastery, parts don't always enjoy, kind of sitting on my hands and just allowing things to integrate for a long time after that program of just kind of, again, as start within studying my own chart. How is this in service to my own life? Understanding the transits, what they feel like in my body, if it's something that pings for me, and then stepping into, just gathering people like, hey, can I read your chart? Will you just tell me, for free, come on, let's. And so I was doing a lot of practicing on family and friends and starting to learn about the different ways it shows up. And of course, my own children and my partner, constantly just studying these charts and then charts that are available and looking for patterns. And it really is a lot, but then it does start to integrate, I guess, as with anything we're learning. And then it starts to become, just like learning a language. It just is accessible in a way that you don't have to work so hard like you do on the forefront of it. Like once you kind of have that strategy of how you're bringing in the information and then patient enough to let it sit and really decide how that feels for you and your experience of the different things you're hearing or reading about. And then being able to share it and disseminate it.
Yeah. How important do you find well, we kind of just talked about this, but the North Node versus South Node, is that kind of is that your basis for client work?
It's a really, really significant aspect of our charts. And I know some astrologers who quite literally will only, they'll do birth chart readings just on the North and South Node, and of course pull in typically the lights like the sun and the moon as well. And I find that it is so fruitful, and it is an aspect of the chart with clients that when I bring that in, there seems to be a deep resonance and almost a sense of relief when we start to get into some of these concepts, because for your listeners, the North and South Node are the story, and the symbolism behind them is your North Node is where your soul wants to grow in this life. And your South Node is, if it resonates, past life gifts that you're coming in with. And so the South Node tends to be a comfort zone that we'll kind of just fall back into and hang out there, where the North Node isn't typically very comfy. We're stretching, we're building new skill sets, and we're trying to kind of get ourselves to point in that direction, so to speak. And typically, it's like they say the North Node is the head of the dragon, the South Node is the tail of the dragon. And the tail of the dragon and the head are disconnected often in the first half of life. And so the tail can be distracting. It's kind of whipping around back there, and it's not really helping you on your trajectory. But then something beautiful happens where the North and the South Node kind of find each other in midlife. And all of a sudden the tail starts to work with the head and propelling you forward on your mission and your journey. And it can become so much more clear. And there's a courage and a willingness to, leave our job of 9 years and step into something in service to people to help them. And we start to feel really brave in that space, even though it's uncertain or unclear, or we don't know exactly what we're doing. And we can feel like taking all our sweet little imposter parts with us as we, take the next best step and find that alignment that really makes our soul sing.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. I'm actually in my Jupiter return. So it makes sense that I'm, feeling propelled for many reasons, but it has felt like this, just girl, you're going, whether you like it or not, because I feel like I've been at this threshold moment a few times in the past 6 years.
Okay.
And I have not been ready to, so it just keeps circling back around, and then developing and building and, all the other things that I've done to kind of prepare myself for this, which is nervous system work, which I'm also curious about with, how does that play a role in your work, in your own personal journey?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, real quick before that, I love what you just said because it's such a beautiful reminder of like, you will not lose or miss, that which is meant for you. And one of the ways that I think astrology really supports us, as you're mentioning with like your Jupiter return, which is such an expansion growth period for all of us when that happens, that there's, this the divine timing of things, which astrology is all about the timing of things and the reminder that things are always in motion and moving. And if there is a moment it comes up and it's like, oh, I don't feel quite ready, it's like it'll come back. Jupiter comes back. He'll be back around, not too long after. And I love that. I love that, like the trusting and the waiting. And sometimes we can get really hard on ourselves or think in our little big brain parts that like we have so much control over things. And it's like, oh, there's actually so much magic in like the sacred surrender and trusting that
Mm.
divine timing.
Yes, girl. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Yes. And the nervous system. Yes. Oh my gosh. Nervous system, everything, right? I love how much clout the nervous system has been getting like on social media. And it's like, oh, yes, this is like the ticket. Like,
Mhm.
as a human being with a nervous system, we are herd animals. We sync up with each other. Our nervous system is constantly just testing the environment, safe, unsafe, safe, unsafe. And the more connected we can be with that process, and where we're at, the state of our nervous system, how we can help ourselves regulate. And sometimes I think there's some information out there like we should always have a regulated nervous system. But truly a healthy nervous system is going to activate, but then can also come back down. And that tone of the vagus nerve to move us into our different nervous system states. And it's definitely something that I pull into my work. And I just, yeah, nervous system healing is the key to so much. It unlocks so much for us.
It is. It is. And it gives us the capacity to hold something bigger, right? That's kind of what I'm working on and working through right now is I'm stepping into this like big chapter in my life, right? I have no idea what that's going to look like fully. I have a dream, a vision. But I'm holding it loosely, but with that is going to come with the desire of more, right? Of more expansiveness,
Yes.
stepping out of fear, being able to build something without someone telling me how to do it, what to do outside of support, right? But it's like I'm only accountable to me, right?
Yes.
Part of that is going to be like allowing for more money, right? All of these things require you to work on your nervous system around that because it feels unsafe on so many levels
Mm.
to receive more than you have, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, yeah.
Mm. I love that. It makes me
So,
think of the concept of vesseling in alchemy. Have you heard about that? Where it's this
no, tell me
idea
more.
of like the ancient alchemists, they had, which now we kind of look at like, oh, there was some projection happening there. They're trying to work with this transmutation, and there actually could be a psychological process that they're trying to work out with material things, turning the lead into
Mhm.
gold, and this idea of like turning our leaden feelings into treasure. And there was so much instruction about the vessel in which these processes would come forth. And I think there's something so powerful about this idea of like our nervous system and the concept of vesseling. And the rules that they had for the vessels were like the vessel must be clear so that you can see into it.
Mm.
You observe the process happening. And so when we think about this, it's like, do we have insight and self reflection and self inquiry and clear sight into ourselves for our alchemical processes that are happening? And then the next one was that the vessel must be strong to endure the heat
Mhm.
and the gases and the pressures that come from the process of heating up this lead. And then I think about like
Mm.
fortifying ourselves and like really being able to hold and endure through experiences that are stretching us, through uncertainty, through processes that are happening, that are just going to happen. And all we got to do is like hold, just like hold ourselves and allow the process to unfold within. And then a beautiful one that I love is the last rule was about the seal that they would put on the top of the
Mhm.
glass vessel, and the seal was to prevent premature release of the process and also to prevent contamination from outside sources coming in. And so I think about this as like boundaries of like who do you let into your process and also without releasing it prematurely. And we don't want other people's stuff coming into our process when we're kind of in that vulnerable um, malleable state. And I think about that and like the strength of the nervous system being directly connected to us as vessels, because these processes are going to happen. And if we can just hold ourselves, it will continue to develop and there will be transmutation that happens internally if we can hold ourselves through.
Yeah. Yeah. I there's this teacher, when I first started like dipping my toes into Kabbalah. I don't know if you're,
A
if
little bit. Yeah, a
I
little bit.
do, yeah. Kabbalistic teaching I find so fascinating, and he talks about the vessel and it being the central point of everything, right? And if you have a vessel that's weak or that has holes in it or that's leaking, right?
Yes,
We
yeah.
find ourselves, in these cycle patterns, right?
Right.
And being able to hold and transmute and move past kind of like what you're talking about is so vital to um, getting to the higher timeline, right?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I love that. Yes, there it is. It's like, and there's something so relieving too about this idea of like, oh, I don't have to be like in control or like in there, like making the changes. But if I can just allow myself to be still and to feel grounded and fortified as the vessel for these internal processes, then they'll just happen, which there's something, I guess, probably to my hardworking parts that are like, oh, another thing to do, you know?
Yeah.
We don't have to do anything. We just have to be. And our practices are what kind of keep us grounded and keep us feeling really confident in that space.
Yeah. Yeah. On the topic of practices, what is your, I mean, I know it's ever changing, but what are some of your practices now?
Hmm. Where am I at right now? It really is always changing. I think back on like I had seasons where it was like at least 30 minutes on the cushion every day, like meditate and, really holding space for myself that way. And I went through like 2 years of a lot of yoga nidra, that the body scanning and the non-sleep deep relaxation that offers for my nervous system. Um, and really like that was like my main thread. And honestly, right now, my mindfulness practice is my puppy that I was telling you
Yeah.
about before, because it is like constant invitation, spin out or drop in, spin out or drop in, because she's wild.
I love it. I love it. Do you ever, have you ever been into tarot or,
Yes,
okay.
I did. I pulled a card right before this,
What'd you pull?
the Ace of Cups.
Oh, yes.
Overflowing, sharing all the overflow.
Oh my God.
Um, yes, I do. And I actually, my partner is really into tarot, and um, he's very deep into the psychology and the symbolism of it. He is a Jungian analyst. And so I love it because he will go like so deep within himself and into his symbols and, the dreamscape and all of that. And then, of course, I love to go into the ethers and, up to my guides and, all in marshmallow land. But we always end up at the same spot.
Yes.
It's magic. And I love it. It's like, there's so many ways to get there. It's like, whatever resonates.
Oh, so fun. I love that you have a partnership of just like mysticism and exploration, and it just makes it so much more fun.
Yeah, yeah, so
Yeah.
much depth, like, that's what,
Mhm.
really seems to come from that, which he is a lovely Pisces Cancer moon, so
Oh,
his the waters pull me into that emotional depth in such a beautiful way with my, I have an Earth Sun and Earth Moon, so I can be a little bit like, "Let's ground it, let's make it real," or I've been dubbed
yeah.
before the dream crusher in the past,
Yeah.
bring it down to earth, like, what's the strategy? Let's be practical. So
Mhm.
it's a nice kind of balance, I think, that we offer each other in that way.
Yes. What sign do you feel like you resonate the most with for yourself?
Mm.
Like what do you feel the most
Mm.
like?
I really do. I have a lot of planets in Taurus. So my sun is in Taurus, but also my Venus, the heart space, is in Taurus, how I process emotions. And then my Mercury, how I communicate and think about things, is also Taurus. So
Mhm.
anytime I've read Taurus stuff, I'm like, yeah, that hits. And I'm a Cancer rising, and I have found that in the last probably very Cancerian since becoming a mother, of really connecting with the Cancer script as well, and really tapping into that sensitivity and the nurturing that comes with that zodiac sign. And so and I also have an Earth moon. It's a Capricorn moon. So the Earth I've always really resonated with. It's the slowest of all the elements. It's integrating along the way. It's the only element that holds shape. It takes a long time to kind of get going, but once it does, there's a real sturdiness to it and a real volition, and it can sustain and endure. So I've always really felt connected to that element. But I have noticed with the rising sign, and I have heard some astrologers say like that you rise into your rising sign over your lifespan. And so I used to maybe reject some of that sensitivity, maybe like in my 20s. And now it's been able to integrate in a really supportive and lovely way.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I have it's interesting. So obviously I have my sun is in Leo and my rising is in Leo, and my moon is in Scorpio. And I feel like the middle part of my life, I have deeply identified with the Scorpio moon, but I've also kind of been in that, like, beat up, alchemize, get back on your feet, beat up, alchemize, get back on your feet for a while. And, I'm moving into this phase of my life where I'm integrating the more grounded parts of Leo now, right? Where it's not so flashy, see me, see me, see me. It's more just an embodied energy.
Yes.
Rather, you know what I mean? Rather than kind of graspy energy, which was obviously like my early 20s, teenage years for sure. But I did this reading recently, and I'm curious what your take is on this. I know it can be controversial in the astrology world, but have you ever done any work with the like hidden sign, like that there's supposedly, the 13th, the 13th sign, and that it's more aligned with like the 5D kind of, I'm not going to say this right, but the direction we're headed, right? It's more evolved in that direction. Have you?
I've heard about it. I can't remember. It's like
Ophiuchus?
Yes. 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 And the thing that I love about astrology is that there's not one truth. There's like multiple stories. We have Western tropical astrology, and then we have Eastern Vedic astrology. And if you pull up, like I do Western tropical astrology, and if you have any planets or angles that are below, now I think it's at the end of 24 degrees. So any planets you have before, let's say 25 degrees, will shift into an earlier zodiac in Vedic, because in Vedic astrology, they have adjusted over the last 2,000 years tell me if this gets into the weeds. So the Earth is tilted and there's a little bit of a wobble on the axes. And so they've adjusted for that to where it lines up with where the stars are in the sky. And so if you were to, like right now in Western astrology, you pull up the chart and it says that Venus, let me see, where is she right now? She's in, okay, so Venus, no, she's not. Mars is 9 degrees Aquarius right now in Western astrology. But if you were to go look outside with a sky finder or your telescope, you would see that if you could, I don't know if you can see her right now, but if you can see her or see him, you would see that Mars is actually in Capricorn in the sky. And so that's what the Vedic has adjusted for that. Now, Western astrology, it is tracking something different, because Western astrology has always held that the beginning of the zodiac is at 0 degrees Aries, which connects with the spring equinox.
Yes.
And so Western astrology has always held to the spring and fall equinox and the summer and winter solstice as the 0 degree cardinal points. So there hasn't been an adjustment with those degrees to accommodate the axis wobble. of the earth and the way that it ticks just a few degrees every, I think, 100 years or something. It's like a degree or half a degree. Um, and so that's the main difference between them. And sometimes there's a flare up that will happen every few years in astrology of like, oh, astrology's all wrong. If you go out and you look, the sun is actually not in Aquarius, it's in Capricorn. And there's a big debate that often comes up with that. And so I've heard a little bit more of this kind of discussion about the 13th sign, because now, as we have more visibility into the sky and the constellations and the stories and the myth, I think it's all fruitful. It's just kind of what's resonating and what feels supportive versus what is right and what is wrong, which I love. Like one of the things with like Venus, for example, they had the Greek mythology, talking about Venus and the art displaying Aphrodite and like all of these versions. And then, across the world or far away, someone else was like describing a different kind of Aphrodite Venus, where it was much more like assertive and kind of more forward in that way versus soft and receptive and had more of like bright light in the art around her. And instead of saying which one's right or wrong, astrology said, okay, we've got morning star Venus and evening star Venus. And we can work with both of these facets of the Venusian energy that's offered to us. And I just think there's something so lovely about that. Like even the house signs, whole sign, is a house system where it puts one zodiac that completes a whole house. And then there's Placidus, which if you Google free birth chart, it will default typically to Placidus, which puts your first house starting at your rising sign degree. So if you have a late rising sign, your first house might just be a few degrees of your rising sign and then majority of it the next sign. And so those are house cusps and house rulerships. And I have found in my own practice, at least, that there are times where my Placidus chart really resonates with me and I can see how I'm working with that and I can see the story there. But then, and I have a lot of late degree planets, so they'll shift from like 6th house to 7th house. And a lot of that happens when I switch house systems. And then I can see also how my whole sign works with it too. And so some people feel like, oh, I need to know the truth. And that's usually, we can usually find that on the chart if there are parts like a strong Saturn, that's like, this has to be black and white. What's happening here versus the kind of the great mystery and like, how is this supportive in this moment for me?
Oh, I love that answer. And that's where I've always kind of lived. I always describe myself as someone who lives in the gray area. There's not a whole lot of black and white for me. It's not wrong or right. It's just kind of how I live. And, when I got this birth chart reading for the 5D reading, it was so cool. And she, she's been an astrologer for a very long time. And she was like, I don't think like there's this other chart, the Eastern chart is not wrong. I still use it. It is still a central part of my study in my life and how I coach people. And right. And that's like the best word to describe black and white is like, right.
Yes.
When I did the reading, my two of my signs, major 3 changed.
Okay.
To my son changed to Cancer. And she kind of talked about like this mother kind of like wise grandmother archetype, that I can see that I can see myself moving in that direction, right?
Yes.
So that makes sense to me. And then my moon actually shifted from Scorpio to Libra. And I was like, is this the relief I've been looking for?
Yes.
Harmony. I am balanced.
Amazing. I love that.
But yeah, it was a really fun, cool thing. And I think I just always choose to look at the world from the lens of magic. And, if I feel, so your answer was perfect. If I feel that resonates with me at certain points, then I'm going to let it resonate. And if, this other chart does, then I'm going to let it resonate. So
I love that. Yeah. And that wise discernment to know, like that inner wisdom of like, okay, this is what's in service for me right now. It makes me think a little bit about like with meditation or with clients, and they're like, I feel like I'm making this up, and it's like, and they can get kind of wound up about that. And I love to share. It's like, you are making this up. Like the way your soul speaks to you is through your imagination and symbolism. So if your psyche or your heart is trying to communicate something with you, it's going through your filing cabinet and it's like, we're going to pull out this image of Donald Duck to represent silliness or whatever it might be, because that's what that represents to you. And then all of a sudden you'll get this vision of, Donald Duck doing something. You're like, this is bizarre. Or we have a dream about it. And it's like, you're absolutely making it up, but your imagination is the way that your soul can communicate with you, which I think is why children are so directly connected to source.
Yes, yes. So beautiful. So you have 2 daughters.
do.
Has it been like a helpful tool to utilize astrology in parenting and understanding them?
Yes. Oh, so much so. And they're very different. It's been so helpful to have astrology for parenting, to recognize individualism, especially the moon. I've always been really partial to moon signs. I'm always curious what people's moons are. There's this, everyone walks around saying, like, I am a Taurus. And, it's like, it's just one sliver of this like really beautiful, complex pie that we have within us. And the sun sign getting a lot of clout, in the newspaper horoscopes and all of that. And, but the moon, that veiled internal experience, that, the temperament, the flash in the pan emotions, our attachment styles, how we feel safe and cared for, how we can be supported and nurtured. So the moon sign has been a really great tool in my parenting toolbox with my daughters, because they're very different. I've got one of my daughters is a Taurus moon and one is a Leo moon. And, while they're both fixed in their modes, we got fixed fire and fixed earth, the pacing in which they process is so different. Like my Taurus moon daughter, it's a slow build, but when we get there, we are holding, like we are in whatever emotion it is, and we're going to endure for a while. And I just have to sit on my hands. My cardinal moon is earth, but it's like, okay, well, what do we do with this? Like, sit on my hands, let her be in her process. And she hangs out there for a while, and then she comes down. Versus my other one, who's fire, which is so fast. And it's just like spikes and drops, spikes and drops. It's like flare and then fine, flare and then fine. And that's a very different way of moving through emotions than what I do personally and what my oldest daughter does. So that has been so helpful, just to be like, oh, there's that Leo moon, like just it's sparking right now. It's throwing off its flames. And then I also know with the Leo moon and, that feeling really unique and special is something that just makes her glow. And there's, and knowing that about the Leo moon, and then knowing about like the stability and security that is so, and the resistance to change and needing a lot of transition time for the Taurus moon, and being able to know that about them is so in service, just to keep it individualized, to see the individual in there and how I can meet them and meet their needs in that way.
Love that. So beautiful. What does it mean when a planet or one of your signs is at the 29th degree?
Yes, the anaretic degree, like your moon. You have that strong Scorpio moon, and which you were saying earlier about, that kind of like phoenix, like burning up and then going to ashes and being reborn, and that constant transmutation, with Pluto as the modern ruler of Scorpio, and your Pluto also being in Scorpio. So he's right there in his castle, like with that moon. And dark moon Lilith, I don't know if that's a point you've ever played, as she's conjunct your moon. So that's a deep moon.
Yes.
But yeah, it's like a mastery degree level. And so I kind of describe it as when you have planets at that last degree. So each house is 30 degrees, and we have the 12 houses, which makes a circle of 360 degrees. And so 0 to 29 degrees, 59 minutes makes up one of the zodiac houses. So when you have a planet and that 29 degree space, there is this, it's like the grand finale of that zodiac script. Like there has been other experiences at earlier, not that planets in earlier degrees are, less than in any way. This is not a linear better than less than thing. It's just kind of this, like, it's more of that, more emphasis, like the soul wanted to put more emphasis on that specific script. Like,
Mm,
and again, if it resonates, perhaps you had previous lives with other planets at earlier degrees of Scorpio,
mm,
and you were learning different lessons at those degrees. And then here you are with this moon, a very strong moon at the very end of Scorpio.
mm,
There is that grand finale. The newspaper horoscopes kind of started this cusp discussion, like a cusp. And I think that was an attempt to try to have it connect with more people. Like if you're at the end of a zodiac, you are on a cusp. But
mhm,
I have found through my work with people that that doesn't seem to quite hit, because it is more of like the grand finale. There can be like some teasers of what's coming next, which might be that bridge of a cusp energy. Just like if you're watching a show and it's a 12 episode season, that the show finale, and it leaves you kind of on some cliffhangers, but a lot of strings, get tied up and completed. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's where that was leading, and a
mhm,
lot happening, a lot of action.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, wow. Yeah, someone told me, this is why I wanted clarification. Someone told me that it was like you had lived out this lesson multiple times. So I guess in so many ways, there's truth to that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
If
it
you believe in
is.
past lives, which
Right,
I
right. Yeah, and there is that kind of, like a mastery kind of flavor to it. It's like,
mm,
but with that mastery can also come the more intense tests, like the
mhm.
final exams, if so to speak, too, of as far as lessons go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a tough, I think Scorpio moons, I think sometimes get a tough rap because there is this level of, secrecy that happens, I think, in the evolution of, life, at least for me, where
Mm.
it just we hold emotions really close to our chest
Yeah.
and, have a hard time, and I'd love your perspective if you're like if you have better language for it, but there's this element of, really, really having to work through allowing people to see me and it
Mhm.
feeling safe enough to be seen in that.
Yes.
But I remember being, and maybe this has nothing to do with Scorpio moon, but I feel like an aspect of it does. I just remember always being like a secretive kid. Like it was so hard for me to share my internal world. And I would watch other people do that and just be like, how do they do that? It was just like this phenomena to me. Like, how does anybody do that?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
when I got into recovery and was, have like pushed to move past that, if I was going to stay sober, I had to be honest with people. I had to allow myself to be seen, right? It felt like a death. Like I was like, I'm going to die being seen on this level, and had to really work with that energy so much in my life to come to the point where I'm like, okay, see me, it's okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are
Oh,
your thoughts?
wow. Yeah, beautiful. Awareness and your journey with that, and even thinking about, you as a little one, and like that that interesting experience to witness peers who are, moving through in a different way. And it's like, oh, how do they do that? And I see Scorpio, fixed water as the iceberg. And it's like this much is visible, but there's so much happening under the surface. And we know water is the deepest of the deep, just like literal water is always trying to settle at the deepest point possible. It's traveling down to the roots. And gravity is always going to pull it as deep as it can. And so water in general, you know, we've got Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Those planets do tend to, it's more of that intuiting, sensing, feeling experience. And often language falls short of the embodied experience or the emotional experience that we're having. And Scorpio goes the deepest of the water signs. And so I have found that a lot of Scorpios will go mute because there's been wounding around that, where it's like, I'd rather say nothing than to say something and be misunderstood. And
Mhm.
so I even think about like poets and musicians and like, these experiences of language that have that extra layer for the emotional feeling that comes from the language. And so that's what I think of when I think of water signs, of like that extra layer. And there is so much around like just existing in places where language does fall short. It doesn't quite grasp it. And, Scorpio is like the love you to death and I mean it script. It's like merging souls like on this deep, deep level. And I can imagine that was quite a journey to try to like bring that up for visibility, and that the vulnerability in that of like, will this be received? Will I be understood? And this ties right into your North Node in Aquarius of like
Yes.
learning to be comfortable with being misunderstood. And that place of having to kind of overexpose yourself in ways, and then notice what comes up in those spaces. It's a
Yeah.
probably I'm just thinking a lot about what that must have been like for you, and just that challenge.
Oh, you're so sweet. Wow. I am just so I could literally talk to you forever and just, I'm like, what is
Yes,
your
the
favorite
same.
kind of client? Like
What was that? I missed that.
what is your favorite, like, not kind of client, but like focal point
Mm.
in your work with a client?
Mm, that's a great question. I do find, and I feel so grateful for this, but like all of my clients, like I just delight in them. I mean, I think anybody who's like using their hard-earned resources of money and time to come into a space to like, want to know themselves on a deeper level is just like, oh my gosh, like I work with women mainly, and so I have all women right now, and they're just, they're all just amazing. I'm like, yes, babe, like this is fantastic. And always, have my cheer parts that are like, you're doing so great, but I think like the meat and potatoes of it, like what's really energizing is while often people come into the therapeutic space most of the time, not always, but most of the time, because something's going on. It's like, okay, I've been wanting to do this and now this has reached a threshold. I really need support in this, or there might be some sort of crisis or fire in their life that's happening. And that's often a big part of the therapy process of like putting out fires, and how do we like hold ourselves through, and learning skill sets in that. But I find that the really meaningful, deeply transformative work comes when there is a level of groundedness available, and maybe things aren't as like pop-a-mole crises happening all the time, and we can go really deep into that kind of psychoanalytic place of working with the symbols, working with the psyche and the subconscious and the different parts, our younger parts, going into that kind of inner child space, and like radical self-compassion and love, and being able to parent, mother, ourselves in a way that is supportive. And to me, there's so much magic in that. I think it's the closest thing we have to like literal, like time traveling, of like being able to meet a younger part, show up for them in a moment of overwhelm or trauma, and be able to hold space or be with them during that experience in the visualizations. And then to kind of come out of that and be like, when that was actually happening to me in my real life, I felt a presence. And it's like, was that you right now, going back in that moment to like hold that space? And it happens so often in this work, and it blows my mind. It gives me chill bumps. It's just like the most beautiful thing to get to walk beside people as they journey through in that way.
Mm. Wow. Yes. 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 I have thought about that concept before. I don't know if you've ever seen Interstellar, but it's like, yeah, Interstellar is amazing. But, it's obviously the theory that all dimensions are happening
Yeah.
at one time, right?
Time is not real. Yeah.
Time's not real. Right. So, what a beautiful and comforting thought to think that I was always the one that was supporting myself in those really scary, deep moments as a kid,
Yeah.
right? Oh,
Yes. Mm. Yes,
so
and it's like
beautiful.
it is, it's so mystical, and there's so much that we don't know
Mhm.
about ourselves, our psyches, this world, energy, the great mystery of what happens when this life completes, and
Mhm.
being able to kind of be open to all of that and then still find connection, I think
Mhm.
is just the ticket, how we exist, as you mentioned, in the gray space and how we can be, fluid and open to all of the things that we don't know. My favorite, my Capricorn moon that likes to be a master of things. One of the most relieving things, I think it was a meme on probably Instagram, but it was like a pie chart.
Mhm.
It said it had a little sliver and it was like all the things you know. And then it had like a little sliver next to it and it said all the things you don't know. And then the rest of it said all the things you don't know.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, I feel so relieved in being able to be like, I don't know. I have no
Yep.
idea. And the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know,
Yes.
which is, these lives, it's an adventure constantly.
It is an adventure, and it's so fun to be able to, like, take whatever position you want, believe whatever you want. Like, you get to believe whatever you want, you know? And there's no right way, wrong way, and I'm so fascinated by humans and how what they anchor into, what keeps them alive, what,
Yeah.
gives them hope and, all the different ways that we do that. Um,
Yeah.
Because ultimately it's really just having this belief in something greater than me, bigger than me that can hold me through
Right.
this journey of life,
Yes.
whatever
Yes.
that is for you. So,
Absolutely. And, this deep belief that I have around, everyone is always doing their very best. And sometimes when I'm feeling really frustrated with humans or the way things are going, or it's like, oh, if we could just be more loving and we could just be more open, if we could all feel safer in our bodies, like, couldn't this be so different right now? And then I think about if it resonates, for others, how brave we all are to be here right now on the earth as we're going through so much transformation and evolution. And when in doubt, zoom out and kind of, get real big with it and be able to see it from that level and tap back into that compassion to go, yeah, like, even if I don't agree or see eye to eye with, so and so, it's like they're doing their best and we both decided to be here to do this right now. And how amazing is
yep.
that?
Yep, absolutely. Ugh. What parts of yourself did you have to reclaim to step
Mhm.
into this work?
Mm. Definitely my sweet little second grade neurodivergent, hyperactive young parts. I have found that the more that I honor those young parts and really validate them and hold space for them when they come up, the more my self trust just continues to strengthen.
Mm.
And there were a lot of different, and I think too with the Cancer rising aspect, as we mentioned before, and rising into that Cancer script, being able to kind of mother myself with that warmth. For parts, in the internal family systems theory, we talk about an aspect of the psyche that's called the exiles. And those are parts of self that are just too vulnerable to be in this world. And so the system decides the protector parts, the managing parts, they decide that they have to like put that part away, like lock her up in her room. She's too much. Don't wake her up. Like she can't be out. She overwhelms the system or floods the system, whatever it might be, don't make her upset. And so they
Mm.
keep her locked up. And so my work of like really building trust with all of my protector parts so that I can get to these aspects of self that have had to be locked up in their room and weren't allowed to come out or be seen or witnessed in their big feelings. And that to me has been like a revolutionary for my internal landscape to be able to have that self trust, to have all of my parts trust me as the keeper, to assist them in their jobs, and then to honor them. When a part flares up and it like has something to say and it's got big feelings, it's like holding space for that and really trusting, just really facing like the um the truth of like really being like fiercely honest with myself too
Mm.
about it
Mhm.
and not being scared of that. Like that has been incredible work for existing in uncertainty, accepting my own messiness when I'm
Mhm.
upset or when I haven't done things perfectly or right, and trusting that whatever is true will be true tomorrow. I can sleep on it. Like I can have time with anything that bubbles up. I think that those kind of key points have been touchstones that have really like been catalysts for a lot of integration and a lot of internal harmony that comes after that hard work.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. What would you say to someone like me? What advice would you give, or, whatever you want to share about being okay fumbling, right? Because that's a big part of that's a part that keeps coming up, right? That perfectionism part of me, the wanting to wanting to be the expert right now, that I think keeps a lot of people stuck, right? There's so many people are afraid to take the leap because they don't want to have to be this little fish in the big sea at some point again, right?
Right.
And so that's an aspect of me that I know I'm going to have to work through, of like not having it all figured out as
Yeah.
I'm working with clients.
Right. Right. I think loving ourselves through, like really loving those parts that feel, that have imposter syndrome, and like validating them. Like, you've never done this before. Of course, there's going to be nerves. Of course, there's going to be mistakes, and it's all in service of learning and being able to like really honor and appreciate those parts of yourself that come up, even the parts who maybe use harshness or criticalness, and they're like, oh, you didn't do that right, or it's not good enough. Like you're never gonna get there, whatever the internal rhetoric might be. But being able to recognize like the service that they're trying to offer, that they want you to feel safe. And so they'll use some of that internal harshness. And depending on how much harshness we experience growing up externally, those voices often get internalized. And being able to recognize that and to thank those parts and really see them, while also just validating like that we all are messy humans that make mistakes, and it's going to happen. And the beautiful thing about stumbling is that we learn from that. And if there's rupture or disconnect that happens, we can repair from that. And that everything, I like to think about it sometimes as like gathering data. It's like we're all like little scientists, all our parts, and it's like, okay, I'm going to try something. You're trying something, you're experimenting. And the beautiful thing about experiments is that you're going to get information on the other side of that. And a good scientist, hopefully, is not going to be hooked into what they think it needs to be or how it should be. They're going to be open to the results of what comes from the experiment or the testing of the theory. And sometimes I like to like lighten it up in that way of like, I'm just gathering data. I'm constantly learning. Like, if we can just allow life to be a constant journey of learning, then we don't have to be masters. We don't have to be perfect. We can't be perfect. We've never done this before. Like, that's wild. And it's also wildly uncomfortable to be the student and to go to goo and to be like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And but to be able to hold all of that with the self-trust that like, I'm doing my best. And that is all I can do. And when I'm doing my best and I'm taking the next best step, and if life presents me with something wild, I'm going to trust myself to continue just to take the next best step. Because if you could do better, I have no doubt you would. So it is true. Like, you're doing your best. And so that is something that I think can be helpful for some of those more nervous parts or anxious parts that can get into that fear-based place. And then the trust, as you mentioned, of like, circling and orbiting around you, several times before stepping into that space. And, that the trusting that life is unfolding for you always. And sometimes it's hard, and we're learning really hard things in those moments. And while I never want people to suffer, I know I can say for myself that I have learned the most about myself, and I have been sculpted in the most painful moments of my life. And I don't know that I would be who I am today without going through those failures, without having those heartbreaks and those painful times. And so I am grateful for those as well. And sometimes being able to play with perspective like that can help create some spaciousness when those parts kind of fire off in the internal atmosphere. If we can have a big atmosphere to be like, whoa, look at that one. Does that one need to go all the way to the moon? I don't know. Maybe just a little bit, and then we can find space around it and notice what else we can inject into the internal dialogue.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I would be a client of yours any day. So on that note, like, please share with us where people can find you, your work,
Yes, absolutely.
work with you.
Yes. And so I am always open to taking birth chart readings and astrology clients. That's always open. And that can be booked direct on my website, which is danielleknapp.com. And I also have a YouTube channel where I try to do it weekly. Sometimes it's every other week, just some astrology updates of what's happening presently. And that's kind of my main astrology spaces. And because I do weave together astrology and therapy, my Instagram is Start Within on Instagram. And my therapy website is startwithintherapy.com. And occasionally I have openings where people can come in. So if anyone's interested and they're in the state of Texas, because I'm licensed by the state, they can shoot me an inquiry and if I have space, we can meet and have a consult, figure that out. And if I don't have space, I can get you into a nest that I think you would feel good in, or get you on a wait list, whatever kind of feels helpful in the moment.
Wonderful, wonderful. What are you most looking forward to this year, the year of the horse? Is there anything exciting on the horizon? Any passion projects? Anything that's
Yes.
lighting you up?
You know, I don't know exactly where it's heading, but I feel like the fog is starting to lift a little bit. It has felt for a couple years where it's like taking a step, letting the fog clear a little bit, but still not being able to see like exactly where it's going. But it feels like it's kind of starting to open up. And I feel like when the year of the horse gets here, which is a powerful day, the 17th, it's our first eclipse as well, is on the 17th with the year of the horse. And then that starts kind of this portal of time to the big grand conjunction that all the astrologers are talking about on February 20th, when Saturn and Neptune come together at the 0 degrees of Aries, the birth portal of the zodiac. And so there's a lot of buzz about that. We got a sampling of it last spring, but they're really putting in roots. And they're going to be, Neptune will be in Aries and for 13 more years. And it hasn't happened at 0 degrees Aries in 9,000 years. I looked it up the other day because I was like, when was the last time Saturn and Neptune came together at 0 degrees Aries? And 9,000 years ago, like 7,000 BC something. And I think it was around like the beginning of agriculture, like something big like that, and like people settling. And so it's fascinating. So that's the kind of time that we're living in, which creates this really, like, what is planning? I don't know.
Yeah,
Right. I love to have a strategy and a plan, but it feels really open. I have an upcoming workshop happening at Mayo in Austin on February 21st. That's kind of really active in my mind right now, of going into the elements really deeply. And then I have a co-facilitator who is a yoga instructor and runs retreats, and she's doing like an embodied practice for each of the elements. So I'm really excited about that right now. And I'm having fun learning YouTube. It's brand new to me. And so that's been a fun place to kind of be like, oh, what's available here to do more long-term videos and be able to share with people. And I'm always enjoying watching how the work continues to unfold in my therapy space and how astrology continues to support that.
Love that. Yeah, I was gonna ask you. I'm about to step my big toe into the water of YouTube, and I'm like, my mind is already like, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be, and it's like, oh, you haven't even tried yet,
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to that, and just really,
Exciting.
practicing and being brand new and asking for help. And
And just going for it, It's like, it's not perfect. I realized yesterday, I did a YouTube, I think it was yesterday. My shirt was inside out the whole time. I pick up my teen daughter. She's like, oh, why is your shirt inside out? I'm like, oh my gosh, like huge seams. I'm like, this is ridiculous. But that's what my whole video was. And, just going for it. And I heard something the other day that I really loved. And it was a discussion, kind of a state of the universe kind of conversation with an intuitive that I deeply trust. And she was talking a lot about how there's a shift from like visibility and this idea of like needing to reach like the masses versus like the quality of the people who resonate with you, and that being like fewer in numbers but more meaningful. Like that when we're like finding our groups or finding people we resonate with, like more of the small group versus like I need this to have, 1 million views or whatever it might be, like that there's more of a shift of like the quality of the connection and the resonance with the people that do find you, and like trusting that even if the visibility maybe isn't what we see out there with some of the influencer culture. But I think there's going to be a shift in that, the more authentic that we show up, and people feel that, and then when they resonate with you, they'll be drawn towards you, and there'll be sustainability in those connections versus like a 30-second viewership, and then on to the next thing.
Yeah, I love that. So true. Because I personally, the people that I've connected with on my journey and have wanted to learn from are people who show up authentically, but who have also really like been in the mud and are not afraid to show and share that journey with people.
Right. Yeah. The humanness, being able to connect on that human level, it's a huge value of mine as a therapist. It's like, yes, I have this training and this experience, and I've got, some skills and expertise that can be helpful, but also I am just a human meeting another human, and it's the relationship that is healing. And I just deeply feel so honored to accompany, people on their journeys for the time that I'm with them. And I kind of see it as like showing up alongside them, with a lantern for a little while, and then they go on and they have the rest of their journeys. And I have my imaginings of what's happening for them. And, just that beautiful way that, yeah, when we can just acknowledge that we're all just stumbling along, that we're all learning all the time, and we don't have to be perfect, which can be so relieving to some of those parts that feel like we have to be perfect, which is impossible. And the bar always moves by design if we're seeking perfection.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Danielle, thank you so, so much for your time, your energy. You are such a light, and I'm honored to, have some time and space with you, and keep doing what you're doing, because I know you're changing lives and helping people get connected back to their light. So,
thank you so much, Danielle. This is such a dream, and it's so great to speak with you. And I just feel so much connection and so much depth. Like you said earlier, I could talk to you all night long. So.
Yes, same. I'm sure we will connect again in the future. I feel that deeply. So,
thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And until next time. May the cord that binds us to one another and to Source remind you that you are never alone, always guided, and always home.